Hey, listen, if you don't want to be happier, please do not subscribe to this channel. But if you're interested in more joy, check out this clip. I mean, really, there's a talk about learning in ministry, from community and praise and worship, to recognizing someone's gift. It's taking time to recognize, and plucking them out and raising them up.
Right.
And I mean, again, there's so much that can happen in the Catholic world that's not just become a priest.
Right.
You know, for the many people who are not called to that, we should be looking for and plucking them up, you know, and saying, do X. Let's empower people. Okay, so he became a pastor
2 years
in Hawaii.
of grad school and got a master's, and then I started as a college pastor with New Hope Christian Fellowship.
Awesome.
Which at the time is still the largest church in Hawaii, about 25,000 members.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
every weekend.
Wow.
About 6 services, you know, one of those, they meet in a high school.
Yeah.
They don't have their own building. And
Okay.
Yeah.
So from there, back to being a pastor in Colorado.
Yep. So I went from Hawaii, California, Colorado. We don't have to do that, but yeah, doing ministry, all those places.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, so the Colorado part was God continuing to lead you in ways that you didn't foresee.
Right. Yeah.
Back to the Catholic Church, back to where you started. Tell us about that part of the journey, because you had a thriving ministry.
I'll try to make
out
this
here.
quick because it's long.
Yeah.
So anyway, had a thriving ministry. I was an associate pastor at Pathways Church, and we were at the Temple Event Center downtown Denver.
Okay.
Which is only about a couple blocks from the cathedral.
Yeah.
You know, and I was a single associate pastor. I wasn't married, hadn't met my wife yet, and had bought a house in Denver in Congress Park and was renting out a couple of bedrooms to 2 younger guys who were evangelical Christians. And so over time, Scott and Mark, now Father Scott, and Mark, who's the director of evangelization for the Diocese of Madison, started to go through a Catholic conversion right before my eyes. And I did everything I could to try to stop it. They started leaving books about St. Augustine and the Church Fathers, the Desert Fathers, all these different books around the house.
What was getting them? What was the vacuum?
You know, they kind of, they're just a lot smarter than I am, so they caught on to it sooner. But I had the same discontent.
They were studying their way into it.
And I had the same discontent about authority, and why are there churches on every corner, and why is there so much splintering and division if we all read the same Bible? You know, and so those were really the key themes: authority. You know, but I always say that like most Protestants have like 4 or 5 barriers to entry to the Catholic Church. Mary, you know, Mary, probably the Pope, you know, sacred tradition. You know, there's not too many, like you said earlier, not too many things that we err on or differ on, but it's a handful of core doctrines.
They're important things.
Yeah,
right?
very important.
It's not as infinitely massive as what unites us, but they're not insignificant either.
Yeah.
And if true, they're not things you want to brush aside because you're a disciple of the Lord, right? So
as Scott would tell you, I sat both of them down as an older brother, and I felt responsible to do my duty, which is to say, guys, look, I grew up Catholic. They're going to put the cart before the horse and make this about religion before relationship. And like, let me give you 5 good reasons not to become Catholic. You know what I mean? So we had that conversation. They were super humble. They received it, but they kept starting to go to Archbishop's
And how do you
Mass.
respond to the valid concern that we do forget the kerygma, the core message of the gospel, often in our strategic rollout of this to like kids, for instance? What was your experience? You got religious obligations before anyone really preached the gospel to you. So that does happen.
Yes.
And yet we love the church. So how do you answer that charge that people are always putting religion before relationship?
That's probably a conversation for another day.
Yeah, might last an hour right there, dude. Kidding. No, seriously.
No, I think you know, and hopefully our viewers know this too, that it really starts in the home. You know, you got to just tell the story. You got to share the story. You got to show the story. You've got to whiteboard the story. I whiteboard for my kids all the time.
Beautiful.
You got to just talk about the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus more, you know, to try to make that connection. So, you know, they say the average person has to kind of be evangelized 6 or 7 times before it'll make a connection.
Same rule as marketing, dude. Right?
You know, you got to kind of...
You got to keep hearing it.
Yeah.
And then throughout life, again and again. So otherwise, there's no context for them to care about the rest, right?
Right.
And obviously I'd say that just because a lot of Catholics are doing it wrong, frankly, I think that's an error. to go straight to the obligation. Doesn't mean the obligations are irrelevant or bad.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it's the very that thing that brings you back, that you have those rituals.
But it's kind of like parenting, you know, they always say like rules without relationship lead to rebellion. And I love that. You know, I think about that when I'm raising my 4 kids, like rules without relationship lead to rebellion.
Yeah.
And so how do you put that relationship first? How do you convince them that I love you no matter what? You know what I mean? There's nothing you can do to make me love you more and nothing you can do to make me love you less. You have kids, it's just true. But to get them to believe that, right? You have to deliver on that promise.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
And I think it helps them to believe in God if you model that a little bit better, right? But the problem is that we end up making God in our own image, you know?
Yeah.
Blaise Pascal said that. He said, God made man in his own image, and then man returned the compliment. And then God ends up looking just as cranky and bitter and unforgiving and prideful and resentful as we are, right?
Yep. And then religion becomes something that seems miserable.
So if we don't heal our image of God, it's like hitting a golf ball off the tee. If you're off just a few degrees at impact, dude, you're gonna end up way out in the rough.
Right.
Out of bounds, wherever. Like you have to get God right. And Jesus came to reveal the Father. And what does he reveal? He doesn't judge. He says, judge not. He, you know, I mean, he's just, he literally, you know, embodies God the Father.
Calls us
people
save
caught
us.
in sin, he says, let him who's without sin throw the first stone.
Yes.
Right? He says that, you know, he doesn't, but Paul says in the Spirit, love is patient and kind.
Man, wasn't that great? I get so much out of these conversations. I know you will too. Be sure to hit subscribe and share the show with everybody you know. We'll see you in the next video.